Good morning to all. This is really a special opportunity and a privilege to be able to learn and share learnings here at EU 2017. And I come with deep gratitude to all those at Thunderbolts who made this possible. My lifelong passion for astronomy found its reward a few years ago when I discovered the electric universe and the Thunderbolts project, and I count myself very, very lucky. This talk's aim is to answer the question, what can matter be, but not too quickly. In the speeded up times of ours, we're quick to give solutions. Questions trigger responses, usually from what we know already. And quite often our blogs turn into pillow fights where we're tossing opinions back and forth. In contrast to this, resting with unknowns without immediately reaching for solutions has a completely different effect. It tends to bring out hidden lines of reasoning that have their source in intuition. Contradictory facts can be resting places where we take our bearings before moving forwards, and that's important in what follows. A familiar example to us of contradictions, of course, is the dinosaurs. On one hand, it's obvious they'd existed on the Earth. On the other hand, biology and physics shows that it couldn't have been like we imagined. For instance, the frail bone structure couldn't have held such a massive body. And do we take the empiricist stand and say, well, they existed and go on and make dinosaur movies? Or do we hold to the contradiction and allow for a solution to emerge in its time, as it has in the case of the electric universe? You know the story well. With reduced gravity on the Earth, life forms grew to different proportions than today. Reduced gravity means reduced mass, and mass is a variable that depends on electric environment. So it was possible that the mass of the Earth was much lower, while the matter remained the same. Now, the hard problem is understanding what is mass, and we have an elegant response to that, as described by Wal Thornhill. The easy problem, what is matter, is left for us to ponder on. But is it easy? What are the characteristics of matter? It seems so evident it shouldn't be a problem. By matter, we refer to objects we encounter with our physical bodies, that is, our physical senses. On the scale of the macro world, matter is what we bump into. And why the bump? Because material objects occupy a certain space at a certain time. And this implies that matter subsumes space and time. Another fact we associate with matter is unequivocal present. It's either there or it's not there. There's no in-between. If you want the piano to go in the corner, well, the pot with the ficus tree has to go elsewhere. This model of reality works well in our macro world, and it works too for cells under the microscope. But shift down to the scale of the atom and the subatomic, and the model doesn't apply. For one, on this scale, objects apparently don't touch. They, or the particles, have an electric field, and this is equivalent to having a distended body which is less present at a distance from the center. It's not necessary for me to describe this world, you know it well. But to accommodate the subatomic world, do we need to construct a separate, different model of reality? Probably not. And why not? The incongruence between the two worlds results not from not taking into account the description of perception. Our first step should be to grasp how perception gives rise to the world we know. To make my point, here's an anecdote. Once a group of specialists came before God and said, "You're not needed anymore. We know how to how to create life now." And God, ever accommodating, said, "Certainly, you just show me that you can make life, and I'll graciously leave." Well, the experts bent down, took up a handful of dirt and started and proceeded to make life. "Wait a minute," said God. "That's mine. You take your own dirt." Our search for matter begins not with a description of the already present objective world, but prior to this, at the preconceptual state. And to go there seems all but impossible, but we can give it a try. Here's an experience for you to test right now in your mind. Imagine you get a whiff of a magnificent, strange, beautiful scent. And this fragrance, you don't know what it is and where it's from. Just stay with the experience. Fully absorbed by the experience, it's possible to lose the sense of self and other, and just be the mysterious feeling that arises with the fragrance. That suspended state then gets broken the moment the conscious mind enters and forms concepts. At that moment, nirvana's lost, and you say, I smell something special. The encounter between our body senses and whatever is does not create the world. There's no perceived object and no perceiving subject until the mind steps in and formulates the experience in this way. So we can define the process of perception in 3 stages. One stage is the precognitive, of which we can say nothing. Then comes the out-of-conscious moment where there's an integration of multiple elements, which lead to the 3rd stage, the object of perception and the awakening of consciousness. To understand the middle set, the moment of integration is crucial, and was the subject of the Thunderbolts video that introduced this talk. I give 2 further examples now. Looking at a mountainside, diverse features catch our attention: rocks, cliffs, glaciers, streams. However, all these individual items exit from our conscious mind for the split second that the global understanding mountain arises. A hidden act of integration brings together features that fuse to produce the recognition mountain. And in addition to this, there are personal features, attitudes, experiences, knowledges, and feelings that also enter that moment of integration and influence the impact and meaning that the sense mountain has to us. And there's more than this in that moment of integration. For example, light intensity is variable. The brightness we observe of any one area in the field depends on the surrounding areas. In order for the image we see to form, a scale of intensities of luminosity has to be established for the whole scene. Various processes such as this take place in that split second before the image forms. It's amazing, isn't it? The second example I'd like to take is that of depth vision, something that's commonly explained as when you take the parallax difference between the views of the 2 eyes, you can calculate the distance of an object. But this is not at all the experience of depth vision, which is a way of being in the world and a way of connecting with our surroundings. You know well, when an image passes from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, It can give a kind of a jolt, and quite often there's an experience of elation that comes with that change. Calculation with an algorithm is a sequenced process and will not explain the simultaneity of presence. By holding steadfast to the contradiction that arises between the two views, when they're superimposed, each element in the field vies for its place in a coherent, single, unified view, and resolution comes with the third dimension, or with depth vision. And without this, would we imagine a three-dimensional world? And without this sense of volume, could we imagine physical objects? We couldn't. Now we've got a conundrum. On one hand, we personally enact the process of integration that generates the objects we perceive. On the other hand, if we're not there, then what? Shouldn't things disappear? Here's the response of a baffled philosophy student. There once was a man who said, God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that the tree continues to be when there's no one about in the quad. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I'm always about in the quad, and that's why the tree will continue to be observed by yours faithfully, God. Yes, we're caught in a contradiction. Do we take the empiricist position and say, well, the world obviously exists, ignore the contradiction and go on? Or do we ignore the physical side of the contradiction and come up with glibly claim that all is non-material spirit? An answer will come in its time. We just need the steadfast determination to hold the contradiction without jumping to conclusions, as this limerick rhymer did. Let's linger a little bit with that moment of integration. I choose to emphasize just 3 points. Firstly, an empty center. Objects we perceive have no central something that makes them what they are. They are not built Lego-like from component parts. Instead, they arise out of the communion between multiple features that in a timeless moment integrate. That's the empty center. Second point, timelessness. The integration is achieved through a simultaneous interchange between all that gives meaning and form to the perceived object. It is the simultaneous interrelationship of many that forms unity. The third point, non-conscious. The integration happens in an out-of-consciousness moment. It's achieved through the activity of the non-conscious mind, what I call the expanded mind. Oh dear, something. All right, here we can arrive at the first conclusion about materiality. This integration forms everything we perceive. It requires an act of mind to form an object. Realizing this fact bursts the mind-matter duality and signifies the counterintuitive conclusion that matter, as we know it, is a product of mind. How strange this may seem at first. Matter is born in the mind. Can it be so? If physical objects are merely concepts formed in the mind, this raises a very serious question. Would you trust the chair you're sitting on to hold your weight Huh? Despite the fact that you are sitting on the chair, it is a mind object. Contradiction? No, not if we unravel it carefully. Physical experience, as we noted, is the unthinkable exchange between body and all that is. We had the example of fragrance, and now the example of material objects. There's no difference. The preconceptual, ongoing experience that's neither subjective nor objective is inaccessible to the conscious mind. Then in steps the mind, breaks the hallowed state, and codifies it into chair, body, sitting. The conscious mind knows only that which becomes codified into objects. Sitting on a chair is the mind's formulation of a physical encounter. We have absolutely no knowledge of what that encounter consisted of. We only know what it is after applying the codification system we habitually use that matches our present understanding. Now let's go to the question, what can matter be? Is the question, what is matter made of? Or is it, how do we recognize matter? What is it? We look at these two questions separately. Firstly, what is it made of? Is moment we ask of some object, what is it made of, we've abandoned that object, and we're looking for the matter that fills it, and not what it is itself. The matter of a mountain is being a mountain. To look for matter on the inside regresses to the ever more minute until soon we're asking what's the matter of subatomic particles. Here, below the threshold of the periodic table of elements, what kind of matter do we expect? Some cosmic dust? And then we finally realize we've gone astray, because we're actually looking for something to fill the object that's a concept we created in the mind. The question we meant to ask then is what makes matter what it is? Or simply, how do we recognize matter? But this detour through the wrong question bears its fruit. If I'm not mistaken, there's a restatement here of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, though in a different form. Can we really build an integral whole from within by assembling component parts? It's impossible. The complement of this, of course, is how, through integration, we build a whole from without. So back to the question, how do we recognize matter, whether matter in general or the subset of matter we know as physical matter? Let's keep in mind what was already shown. Matter is what the mind creates when it breaks off a piece of the continuing experience, the continuing flux of experience, and allows it to form a self-contained unit. It then has otherness, or what we know as objectivity. To be called matter, an item has to have an identity. It's recognized as something. For example, oh dear, what can the matter be? Johnny's so long at the fair. The matter is the whole problem that the distressed young Irish lass has formed in her mind. And she's surely right. Dublin's Donnybrook Fair was infamous. But for us, matter is the fact that something takes form as a separate entity and becomes an object of attention. Physical matter is when the object related to our experience, the experience of our physical senses, is recognized as present in the three-dimensional world. Physical matter can be auditory, visual, tactile, or a strange fragrance. Matter is not a particular substance, it's a particular, yes, a particular anything. A particular particle, for example, or a mountain. Now, this came rather suddenly. And among you there may be those who want to say, but nothing has been answered. Not so. There is an answer. Matter is anything that has an identity. Thoughts and concepts are mind matter, attributed to the mind only. Material objects are attributed to the physical world we experience through our bodies. So far, it's in perfect accord with our intuitive understanding. The only difference, and this makes all the difference, is that the material object we recognize is empty inside because it's formed from without through a process of integration. Here, we could come back to the idea of the model of reality on the macro scale and on the subatomic scale using the same model. I just touch very quickly on 3 points. One is the empty center of all objects, as we noted. Maybe the same is true on the subatomic scale, and an electric field generates the impression of a central object. The Boscovich atom was an early proposition in this direction. Second point, the timeless moment of integration, in which everything relates simultaneously. Could the same immediate connection be true in phenomena we observe in the universe on all scales? Gravity's connection tends to be immediate, and is probably just one example of such immediate connection. The third point goes a little further. It's the tendency of the mind to produce independent units, concepts, objects. And this is something that is not just the mind, but we observe throughout nature, both animate and inanimate, in the formation of cells, crystals, and more, and of course the plasma. Is the mind responding to a universal tendency that is present in nature? This thought then gives answers to diverse questions. For instance, if the subatomic particles are substanceless, then what holds charge to a position in space? Well, fields on their own tend to form separate units. Or another question, how does the tree continue to be in the quad when there's no intelligent observer? The answer, both mind matter and physical matter participate in the same proactive movement that creates independent, intelligent units. And with this realization, dualism vanishes. In less than a minute, I'll give a recapitulation of the main theme. So what is matter? It's anything that's gone through the process of integration to become a particular thing. Sense organs don't know an object is present. For that, we need the intervention of mind. A good example is warmth. You feel warm, but you have no concept of any thing and no sense of it being other. Warmth can just be an experience until in our mind we form the concept, warmth. Then we can talk about it, and then it becomes the matter of our discussion. There's no more substance to matter, or should I say, there's no more substance to the matter of a mountain than to warmth. All objects are equally real. Matter, love, warmth, beauty. Of course, we differentiate what we encounter with our body senses as physical matter, But the matter part is not substance, but the fact that it formed a self-contained unit. It could be our cultural heritage, with its emphasis on objectivity, makes telling this tale more difficult. And finally, all these observations come to broaden the dialogue between scientist and philosopher. The one in search of facts, the other in search of meaning. Do they contradict? Probably the two aspirations arrive mostly in the same person, the philosophical scientist or the scientific philosopher. In holding with steadfast determination to the contrasting views, we allow for a deeper understanding to emerge. Maybe we did that a little here. I hope so. Thank you for your participation.